The kitchen faucet had been dripping for 3 weeks, and like everything else in my marriage, I was the only one who seemed to give a damn about fixing it. The steady plink, plink, plink into the stainless steel sink had become the soundtrack to my evenings, a metronome keeping time while my wife Talia stayed late at work functions and team-building exercises. Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible Reddit stories. I'm Ethan Carrow, 39 years old, operations manager at Midwest Distribution. Not glamorous, but it pays the bills and keeps food on the table. The kind of steady, reliable job that apparently makes a man boring in his wife's eyes. The front door slammed at 11:47 p.m. I know because I'd been watching the clock, wrench in hand, wondering if tonight would be different. It wasn't. Talia stumbled into the kitchen, her usually perfect auburn hair disheveled, lipstick smeared, reeking of wine and someone else's cologne. Her designer blouse, the one I'd bought her for Christmas, was wrinkled and buttoned wrong. "You're still up," she slurred, leaning against the doorframe like it was the only thing keeping her vertical. "Fixing the sink," I said, not looking up from the pipes. "You know, that thing you've been complaining about for weeks." She laughed, a harsh, bitter sound that made my stomach clench. "Always fixing things, aren't you, Ethan? Too bad you can't fix us." I set down the wrench and turned to face her. "What's that supposed to mean?" "It means..." She swayed slightly, then straightened with the exaggerated precision of someone trying to appear sober. "It means I slept with my ex tonight. Brad Royce. Remember him? The one who actually knows how to have fun?" The words hit me like a physical blow. I gripped the edge of the counter, my knuckles going white. "You're drunk." Drunk and honest. She fumbled in her purse for her phone, nearly dropping it twice. "And that's not all, boring Ethan. Your precious boss, Dana?" "Yeah, we've been having our own little team-building exercises. Turns out she's more creative than you ever were." If my life was a sitcom, this would be the season finale. Too bad I wasn't laughing. "You're lying." But even as I said it, pieces started falling into place. The late nights, the new clothes, the way she'd started putting her phone face down during dinner. "Am I?" She held up her phone, the screen lighting up with notifications. Even from across the kitchen, I could see the names. Brad, Dana, Brad again. "Face it, Ethan, you're vanilla. Safe, predictable. Some women want chocolate, maybe some nuts on top." She pushed off from the doorframe and headed toward the stairs, leaving me standing in the kitchen with the taste of betrayal burning in my throat. Halfway up, she called back, "Oh, and don't wait up. I'm sleeping in the guest room from now on." I stood there for a long time after she disappeared, listening to her stumbling around upstairs, drawers slamming, the shower running. The faucet kept dripping, each drop echoing in the silence like a countdown timer. My phone buzzed. A text from our neighbor, Mrs. Patterson. "Sorry to bother you so late, but thought you should see this." Attached was a blurry photo taken through her bedroom window. Talia and a tall, dark-haired man in an expensive suit, locked in an embrace outside Brennan's bar downtown. Brad Royce, district sales manager, my wife's ex-boyfriend from college, and apparently her current entertainment. I'd met him at company mixers, the kind of guy who wore cologne like armor and treated every conversation like a sales pitch. I deleted the text and went back to the sink. The washer was shot, just like I'd suspected. A simple fix, really. Remove the old one, slide in the new one, tighten everything back up. If only marriages came with replacement parts. Upstairs, Talia's phone kept buzzing. Her smartwatch was still on the kitchen counter where she'd left it, synced to receive all her notifications. Message after message lit up the small screen. Brad. "Had fun tonight? Same time tomorrow?" Dana. "Hope E didn't suspect anything." "You're getting good at this." Brad. "Your husband really doesn't know what he's got." Dana. "Had to laugh when you called him vanilla. More like stale bread." I screenshot each message with my own phone, my hand steady despite the rage building in my chest. They wanted to play games? Fine. But they'd picked the wrong opponent. See, the thing about being underestimated your whole life is that people forget you're watching. They forget you're listening. They forget that the quiet, boring guy in the corner might just be taking notes. I finished fixing the sink at 1:30 a.m. The dripping stopped, but something else had started. A cold, calculating anger that settled in my chest like ice. Talia thought I was predictable? She was about to learn just how wrong she could be. They want games? I play for keeps. The warehouse at 6 a.m. was my sanctuary. Fluorescent lights hummed overhead, casting harsh shadows between towering shelves of inventory. The familiar sounds of forklifts and conveyor belts drowned out the echo of Talia's confession, at least temporarily. "You look like hell, boss," said Tommy Kowalski, my lead supervisor. Tommy was built like a linebacker and had the emotional intelligence of a therapist, a combination that made him invaluable in managing our crew of 30. "Rough night," I said, checking the overnight shipping reports. Everything looked normal on paper, but nothing felt normal anymore. "Talia?" Tommy had worked for me for 8 years. He knew the signs. Among other things. I handed him the reports. "Can you handle the morning briefing? I need to make some calls." Tommy nodded without asking questions. That's what I appreciated about my warehouse crew. They understood loyalty, something that seemed to be in short supply elsewhere in my life. I drove to Grizz's boxing gym during my lunch break. The place smelled like sweat, leather, and honesty, a welcome change from the perfume and lies that had poisoned my home. Howard Grizz Patterson was 72 years old, built like a fire hydrant, and had been training fighters since before I was born. "Carrow," he called from across the gym. "You here to work or talk?" "Both," I said, wrapping my hands. "Got a situation, Grizz." "Wife troubles?" He held the heavy bag steady while I threw combinations. Left jab, right cross, left hook. Each punch carried a little more of my frustration. "She's cheating, with my boss and her ex-boyfriend, maybe others." Right cross, left uppercut. The bag shook under the impact. "What you gonna do about it?" "That's what I'm trying to figure out." I paused, breathing hard. Part of me wants to confront them directly. The other part wants to be smarter about it. Grizz studied me with eyes that had seen every kind of fight imaginable. "You want to hit back? Don't swing wild. Aim for the chin and the wallet. But mostly aim for what they value most, their reputation." "Meaning?" "Meaning these corporate types, they live and fade by image. Take that away and you've taken everything." That evening I sat in my car outside Brennan's bar watching. Talia had texted that she'd be working late again. Her new favorite lie. At 8:15, Brad's silver BMW pulled into the parking lot. At 8:22, Talia's red Accord followed. I waited until they'd been inside for an hour before making my move. Brad's car was parked in the darkest corner of the lot, away from the security cameras. I'd come prepared with a set of keys I'd borrowed from the dealership where my cousin worked. Amazing how many BMWs use similar key patterns. The license plates came off first. I replaced them with plates from a similar car in long-term parking at the airport, plates that would trigger stolen vehicle alerts if any cop ran them. Then I used my house key to carve "Cheater" into the driver's side door, deep enough to require a complete repaint. The piece de resistance was the rotten fish I'd picked up from the dumpster behind Murphy's Seafood. It went into the trunk, tucked up under the spare tire where the smell would ferment for days before Brad found it. I was sliding the trunk closed when footsteps approached. "Hey, what are you doing to that car?" A security guard, flashlight in hand, was walking toward me with the determined stride of someone who took his job seriously. My heart hammered, but I forced myself to appear calm. "Thank God you're here, officer," I said, pocketing the keys. "My wife called. She locked her keys in her boyfriend's car. I was just checking to see if any windows were open." The guard looked confused. "Your wife's boyfriend?" "Don't ask me to explain it," I said with a rueful laugh. "Marriage is complicated these days. But hey, at least I don't have to pay for his gas anymore, right?" The guard chuckled and shook his head. "People these days. You need me to call a locksmith?" "Nah, I'll tell them to figure it out themselves. Thanks, though." I walked away, hands in my pockets, whistling softly. Back home, I opened my laptop and created a new email account, truthteller2024@protonmail.com. Anonymous, encrypted, untraceable. Then I forwarded screenshots of all the incriminating messages to HR at both our companies, along with a simple note. Thought you should be aware of inappropriate conduct between employees. My phone rang at 11:30 p.m. Talia, screaming. "What did you do to Brad's car, you psycho?" "I'm sorry, what?" "I was sitting in my recliner, watching the late news, the picture of innocence." "Don't play dumb. Someone vandalized his car tonight. Scratched it up, stole his license plates. He thinks it was you." "Why would he think that? I don't even know where you two were tonight." The lie rolled off my tongue like honey. "We were at a work dinner, and—" She caught herself, but too late. "A work dinner? Funny, I thought Brad worked for a different company than you do. Must be some very collaborative work you're doing together." Silence on the other end. Then, "Just stay away from us, Ethan. I mean it. Wouldn't dream of interfering with your professional development, honey. Sweet dreams." I hung up and poured myself a scotch, the good stuff I'd been saving for a special occasion. This seemed special enough. The next morning brought the first fruits of my labor. Dana's assistant, a nervous woman named Carol, called me at 7 a.m. Ethan, I probably shouldn't be telling you this, but HR got some kind of anonymous complaint about inappropriate conduct. They're launching an investigation into Dana and, well, into your wife too. I appreciate the heads up, Carol. Any idea what kind of complaint? Something about personal relationships affecting professional judgment. They're being very tight-lipped about it, but I heard them mention reviewing email records and company expense reports. Perfect. HR investigations were like cancer, slow-growing but ultimately fatal to careers. Thanks for letting me know. I owe you lunch. Just be careful, Ethan. Dana's been asking questions about you this morning. She seems to think you might know something about this complaint. After Carol hung up, I leaned back in my office chair and smiled. The first domino had fallen. Now I just had to wait for the others to follow. They thought I was boring, predictable, vanilla. They were about to learn that vanilla could be the most dangerous flavor of all because nobody ever sees it coming. The next 2 weeks were a masterclass in watching people squirm. Dana called me into her office 3 times, each conversation a careful dance around what she really wanted to know, whether I was the one who'd torpedoed her career. Ethan, you know you can talk to me about anything, right? She said during our 3rd meeting, her usually perfect composure showing cracks. If there are any personal issues affecting your work environment, I want to help. I sat across from her mahogany desk, noting how she'd removed the framed photo of her and her roommate Sarah from its usual prominent position. Damage control was already underway. I appreciate that, Dana. Things have been challenging at home lately, but I'm handling it. And Talia? How is she dealing with the stress? You'd have to ask her. We don't talk much these days. I let that hang in the air, watching her process the implications. Dana's phone buzzed with a text. She glanced at it, and her face went pale. I'm sorry, Ethan, but I need to cut this short. HR needs to see me. Of course, let me know if there's anything I can do to help. As I left her office, I caught a glimpse of her text. HR wants all personal communications reviewed by 5 p.m. This is bad. The beauty of corporate investigations is their thoroughness. Once HR starts digging, they find everything. Expense reports for business dinners that happened on weekends, hotel stays in cities with no scheduled meetings, email chains that should have been kept private. Meanwhile, Brad was dealing with his own problems. His wife Jennifer had received an anonymous package containing printed screenshots of his more explicit text messages with Talia. I knew this because Jennifer called me directly. Ethan, this is Jennifer Royce, Brad's wife. I think we need to talk. We met at a coffee shop downtown, neutral territory. Jennifer was 6 months pregnant, showing just enough to make Brad's betrayal even more despicable. I got these in the mail yesterday, she said, sliding a manila envelope across the table. No return address, but I think you should see them. I opened the envelope and feigned surprise at seeing Brad's messages. Jennifer, I'm so sorry. I had no idea it had gone this far. You didn't send these? No, but I'm glad someone did. You deserve to know the truth. She was crying now, quiet tears that broke my heart despite everything. We've been trying to have this baby for 3 years. 3 years of fertility treatments, and this is what he does? What are you going to do? My lawyer says I can take him for everything in the divorce. The prenup has an infidelity clause. She wiped her eyes with a napkin. I'm sorry about Talia. I always thought she was better than this. So did I. That afternoon, I made another strategic move. I canceled our joint credit card and moved half of our savings into a separate account, completely legal since my name was on everything. I also changed the locks on the house, which was solely in my name thanks to my credit score being better when we'd bought it. Talia discovered this when she tried to come home from work. Her key wouldn't turn, and her credit card was declined when she tried to check into a hotel. She called me, furious. You can't lock me out of my own house. Actually, I can. It's my house, remember? You wanted your independence, so I'm giving it to you. This is kidnapping or something. I'll call the police. Go ahead. They'll tell you the same thing I'm telling you. It's a civil matter. You'll need to get a lawyer. I don't have money for a lawyer. You froze my accounts. I didn't freeze anything. I just stopped paying for your lifestyle. There's a difference. She hung up on me, but called back an hour later. Her tone completely changed. Ethan, honey, I think we need to talk. Really talk. I made some mistakes, but we can work through this. Now you want to talk? After weeks of working late and sleeping in the guest room? I was confused, going through something. But I realize now that you're what matters. You're my husband. I was recording the call, of course. Her sudden change of heart would be useful later. Where are you staying tonight, Talia? I don't know. Maybe Nikki's place? Nikki Chen, Talia's best friend and fellow retail supervisor. I'd been wondering when she'd enter the picture. Good. You two can have a sleepover and talk about what a boring husband I am. I'm sure she'll have lots of advice. Ethan, please. I'll have your things packed and ready by tomorrow. You can pick them up when I'm at work. The company's annual gala was scheduled for Friday night at the Marriott downtown. It was supposed to be a celebration of the year's achievements, a chance for employees from different divisions to network and socialize. Instead, it became the stage for my most public revenge. I arrived alone, wearing my best suit and a smile that didn't reach my eyes. Talia was there with a group from her retail division, including Nikki. Dana was holding court near the bar, playing the role of successful executive despite the HR investigation breathing down her neck. I worked the room like a politician, shaking hands, making small talk, positioning myself for maximum impact. At 9 p.m., during the awards presentation, I made my move. The regional director, James Morrison, was presenting the Partnership Excellence Award when I approached the microphone. Excuse me, James, but I think there's been a mistake with one of tonight's awards. Morrison looked confused, but handed me the microphone. The room fell silent, 300 people turning to look at me. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to talk about partnership tonight. Real partnership. The kind that builds trust, creates value, and stands the test of time. I paused, letting my eyes find Talia in the crowd. She looked terrified. My wife Talia and my boss Dana have been excellent partners this year. In fact, they've taken partnership to a whole new level, haven't you, ladies? Dana started moving toward me, but I continued. They've been partnering after hours, during business trips, in hotel rooms paid for with company funds. That's dedication to teamwork that goes above and beyond. The room erupted. People were pulling out phones, recording everything. Morrison was trying to get the microphone back, but I wasn't finished. And let's not forget Brad Royce, who's been partnering with my wife in ways that would make his pregnant wife very proud. Brad, stand up and take a bow. Security was moving toward me now, but I had one more card to play. To partnerships. I raised my water glass in a toast. May they last longer than a hotel stay. Someone threw a drink. I think it was Dana. Then someone else threw food. Within seconds, the elegant gala had devolved into chaos. Security reached me just as I handed the microphone back to Morrison. Thanks for letting me share, I said calmly. Great party. They escorted me out, but the damage was done. By the time I reached my car, the video was already going viral on social media. Their partnership excellence was trending on Twitter within an hour. My phone rang constantly on the drive home. Reporters, co-workers, friends wanting to know if what they'd heard was true. I turned it off and drove in blessed silence. At home, I poured myself a scotch and sat in my recliner, imagining the conversations happening all over town, the awkward explanations, the damage control meetings, the lawyers being called. But I wasn't done yet, not by a long shot. The next morning brought news that both Talia and Dana had been suspended pending the outcome of the HR investigation. Brad had been reassigned to a territory in North Dakota, corporate exile for the terminally ambitious. I was in my office, pretending to work, when my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. You missed a third player in this game. Check Nikki's phone. Interesting. Very interesting indeed. The anonymous tip about Nikki intrigued me. I'd always found Talia's best friend a little too helpful, a little too interested in our marriage problems. Now someone was suggesting she was more than just a concerned friend. I called my old boxing buddy Mike Santos, who'd left the warehouse 5 years ago to start a private investigation business. Mike specialized in corporate espionage and marital cases. Perfect for my needs. Ethan, heard about your performance at the gala. Ballsy move, man. Thanks. I need a favor, Mike. I want you to look into someone named Nikki Chen. Works retail for Morrison's, friends with my wife. Someone thinks she's more involved in this mess than I realized. What kind of involvement? That's what I need you to find out. Financial records, phone records, social media, the works. I'll pay your usual rate. For you? First day's free. I'll have something by tomorrow. Mike was as good as his word. He called me at 6 a.m. the next morning with information that changed everything. Your friend Nikki is interesting, he said. She's been feeding information to Morrison's main competitor for 6 months. Store layouts, inventory schedules, personnel changes, classic corporate espionage. How do you know? Bank records show regular payments from Hartwell Industries. Always the same amount, always the same date. And get this, she's been using Talia as an unwitting source. Those girls' nights out where they talked about work, Nikki was pumping her for information. What else? Phone records show she's been in contact with someone at HR about the investigation into your wife and boss. Looks like she might be feeding them information too. Playing all sides. Gets better. Social media analysis shows she's had a thing for your wife for years. Lots of deleted posts and comments that suggest more than friendship. I think she orchestrated this whole thing to break up your marriage. The pieces fell into place with sickening clarity. Nikki had encouraged Talia's affair with Brad, knowing it would destroy our marriage. She'd probably push Talia toward Dana too, creating maximum chaos while positioning herself as the supportive friend who'd be there to pick up the pieces. Can you prove any of this? Give me 2 more days. I have a contact at Hartwell who might be willing to talk. That evening, I decided to confront Nikki directly. She was at Brennan's bar, the same place where this whole mess had started. I found her in a corner booth, nursing a martini and scrolling through her phone. Mind if I join you? She looked up, startled. Ethan, what are you doing here? Thought we should talk. About Talia. About what's been happening. I don't know what you mean. I slid into the booth across from her. Sure you do. You've been playing puppet master for months, haven't you? Encouraging Talia to cheat, feeding her information about Dana's interest, all while selling company secrets to Hartwell Industries. Her face went white. You're crazy. Am I? Because I have bank records showing regular payments from Hartwell. I have phone records showing your communications with HR. And I have a very interesting psychological profile that suggests you've been in love with my wife for years? You can't prove any of that. I pulled out my phone and started recording. I don't need to prove it to you, Nikki. I just need you to confirm it. I'm not saying anything. You don't have to. Your bank records will do the talking. So will the HR investigation when they realize they've been getting fed information by someone with a personal agenda. She grabbed for my phone, but I pulled it back. Careful, Nikki. Assault charges won't help your case. You bastard. You have no idea what you've done. Enlighten me. Talia was miserable with you. She told me so herself, over and over. You're boring, predictable, safe. She needed excitement, passion, something you could never give her. So you decided to help her find it? I decided to help her see what was already there. The attraction to Dana, the unfinished business with Brad. I just facilitated things. And the corporate espionage? That was business. Hartwell pays well, and Morrison's treats their employees like garbage. I was just evening the score. While using my wife as your source. Talia never knew. She thought we were just talking, venting about work. She had no idea I was passing information along. I stopped recording. There we go, full confession. Nikki lunged across the table, trying to grab my phone. I stood up quickly, and she fell forward, knocking over her martini. The glass shattered on the floor, drawing stares from other patrons. You snake! She screamed. I'll destroy you. Too late, I said, pocketing my phone. You already destroyed yourself. I left her there, soaking wet and surrounded by broken glass, while the bartender called for someone to clean up the mess. The next morning, I forwarded Nikki's confession to HR at both companies, along with Mike's evidence of the corporate espionage. Then I sat back and waited for the dominoes to fall. They fell quickly. Nikki was fired by noon, her access to company systems immediately revoked. Hartwell Industries, faced with evidence of their corporate espionage, quickly settled out of court to avoid criminal charges. And Talia, finally understanding how she'd been manipulated, called me crying. Ethan, I'm so sorry. I had no idea Nikki was using me. She said she was just being a good friend, listening to me vent about our problems. And the affairs? Was she just being a good friend when she encouraged those too? Silence on the other end of the line. I thought so, I said. You made your choices, Talia. Nikki might have pushed, but you opened the door. Can we please just talk? In person? I know I screwed up, but maybe we can work through this. It's too late for that. Please, Ethan, I love you. I know I have a funny way of showing it, but I do. No, you don't. You love the security I provide. You love having someone to fall back on when your excitement gets boring. But you don't love me. I hung up and turned off my phone. I had one more move to make, and I needed to focus. My regional director, James Morrison, called me into his office that afternoon. He looked tired, aged by the scandal that had rocked his company. Ethan, I owe you an apology. I had no idea what was going on under my own nose. None of us did, James. That's what made it so effective. The board wants to offer you Dana's position. Regional Operations Manager, 20% raise, full benefits package. After what you've been through, it's the least we can do. I pretended to consider it. That's generous, but I think I need some time to process everything that's happened. Of course. Take all the time you need. The offer stands. That evening, I met with my lawyer to finalize the divorce papers. Talia would get nothing. The infidelity voided any claim she might have had to alimony or property division. The house, the savings, the retirement accounts, all mine. She could contest it, my lawyer warned. Let her try. I have enough evidence to bury her in court. As I drove home, I reflected on how much had changed in just a few weeks. My marriage was over, but I felt lighter than I had in years. The people who'd betrayed me were facing the consequences of their actions. Justice served cold and methodical. But I still had one final card to play, one last gathering to arrange, where all the players could see exactly what their games had cost them. Time for the final act. The abandoned Hartwell Industries factory on the south side of town had been empty for 2 years, a victim of the same corporate downsizing that had made Nikki desperate enough to sell secrets. It was perfect for what I had in mind, isolated, atmospheric, and symbolic. I sent identical texts to 4 phone numbers at exactly 6 p.m. on Friday night. I have evidence that will clear your name in the HR investigation. Meet me at the old Hartwell factory, Building C, at 9 p.m. Come alone. This is your only chance to fix this mess. Then I drove to the factory and waited. Talia arrived first, her red Accord pulling up to the loading dock at 8:55. She sat in her car for several minutes, probably debating whether to go inside or drive away. Curiosity won, as I'd known it would. Brad's BMW, repaired but still bearing faint scratches where the body shop hadn't quite matched the paint, arrived 5 minutes later. Dana pulled up in her silver Mercedes at 9:10, followed by Nikki in her beat-up Honda Civic. I watched from the shadows as they gathered near the entrance, each one surprised to see the others. "What the hell is this?" Brad demanded, his voice echoing in the empty space. "I got a text saying someone had evidence," Dana said. I assumed it was about the investigation. "We all got the same text," Nikki said quietly. She looked around nervously. "This feels like a trap." "It is," I said, stepping out of the shadows. I was carrying my old boxing bag, the leather worn smooth from years of training at Grizz's gym. They turned toward me, 4 people whose lives I'd systematically destroyed over the past month. "Ethan," Talia said, relief evident in her voice. "Thank God. You thought what? That someone else was going to save you from the mess you created?" I walked closer, noting how they instinctively clustered together like prey animals sensing a predator. "Do you want to know what I've learned about the 4 of you over the past few weeks?" I continued. "I've learned that you're all exactly who I thought you were, just more so." I pointed at Brad. "You're a coward who cheats on his pregnant wife because you're too weak to deal with your own inadequacy." Brad stepped forward. "Listen, you son of a—" "I'm talking," I said calmly. "You'll get your turn." He stopped, something in my tone making him reconsider. I turned to Dana. "You're a manipulator who uses her position to exploit younger employees because you're too insecure to build real relationships." "The investigation will clear me," Dana said, but her voice lacked conviction. "No, it won't, because I have recordings of you discussing how to hide your expense reports. Nikki isn't the only one who's been talking." I turned to Nikki. "You're a sociopath who destroyed other people's lives because you couldn't handle your own unrequited feelings." "I was trying to help Talia." "You were trying to possess her. There's a difference." Finally, I looked at my wife. "And you're a narcissist who threw away 15 years of marriage because you were bored." "Ethan, please," Talia said, tears streaming down her face. "I know I hurt you, but this isn't you. You're not cruel." "You're right. The old me wasn't cruel. The old me was boring, predictable, vanilla. But you know what? The old me also trusted people. The old me believed in loyalty, commitment, doing the right thing. You eliminated that person." I pulled out my phone and opened the recording app. "I want each of you to confess, on the record, everything you did, why you did it, and who else was involved." "You're insane," Brad said. "We're not confessing anything." I smiled and pulled a small device from my pocket, a cell phone jammer I'd bought online. "See, that's where you're wrong. This building is soundproof, isolated, and as of right now, completely cut off from cell service. No one knows you're here except me." The implications sank in. Dana's face went pale. "You can't keep us here." "I'm not keeping you anywhere. You're free to leave anytime you want. But the loading dock is locked from the outside, and the only other exit is through me." I gestured to my boxing bag. 15 years of training at Grizz's gym. Golden Gloves champion in college. I may be boring, but I'm not soft. "This is kidnapping," Nikki said. "This is justice. The legal system moves too slowly, and corporate HR departments are designed to protect the company, not punish wrongdoing. So I'm handling this myself." I started pacing, keeping them all in sight. "Let me tell you what's going to happen. Each of you is going to confess in detail to what you've done. I'm going to record these confessions and send them to every person in your professional and personal networks. Your colleagues, your families, your friends. Everyone will know exactly who you really are." "And if we don't?" Brad asked. "Then we stay here until you do. I brought sandwiches and water. How long can you hold out?" The psychological pressure was immense. They were trapped in an echo chamber with their own guilt, facing someone they had underestimated and dismissed. The boring husband had become their judge and jury. Dana broke first. "Fine. What do you want me to say?" "Start with the affair. When it began, how you used your position to manipulate Talia, how you covered it up with company resources." For the next hour, I extracted confessions from each of them. Dana admitted to harassment and misuse of company funds. Brad confessed to multiple affairs and emotional abuse of his wife. Nikki detailed her corporate espionage and psychological manipulation. Talia admitted to adultery, financial deception, and emotional cruelty. Each confession was recorded, time-stamped, and immediately uploaded to a cloud server I'd prepared in advance. "There," I said when they'd finished. "That wasn't so hard, was it?" "What now?" Talia asked. "Are you going to let us go?" "I'm going to give you a choice. You can walk out of here and pretend this never happened, knowing that I have these recordings and can release them anytime I want. Or you can face the consequences of your actions like adults." "What kind of consequences?" Dana asked. "Resign from your positions? Publicly apologize for your conduct? Make restitution to the people you've hurt? Basically, take responsibility for once in your lives." "And if we don't?" I held up my phone. "Then everyone you know gets to hear exactly what kind of people you really are." Brad lunged at me, desperation overriding common sense. I sidestepped and caught him with a right cross that dropped him to the concrete floor. He lay there groaning, red liquid trickling from his nose. "Anyone else want to try the physical approach?" They shook their heads, finally understanding that the quiet, boring husband they'd dismissed was capable of violence when pushed too far. "Good. Now let me explain what's going to happen next." I outlined their futures with clinical precision. Dana would resign and face an ethics investigation that would destroy her career. Brad would be divorced, bankrupted by alimony and child support, and relegated to selling insurance in whatever small town would have him. Nikki would face criminal charges for corporate espionage and spend the next several years in legal battles that would consume what little savings she had. And Talia? Talia would get nothing. No alimony, no property settlement, no sympathy from friends who would soon know exactly what she'd done. "You're destroying all of us," she whispered. "No," I said. "You destroyed yourselves. I'm just making sure everyone knows about it." I walked to the loading dock and unlocked it with the key I'd obtained from the security company that monitored the building. "You're free to go, but remember, I have those recordings and I'm not the forgiving type anymore." They filed out silently, defeated and broken. I watched their taillights disappear into the night, then sat down on the loading dock and called Grizz. "It's done," I said. "How do you feel?" "Empty, but clean, if that makes sense." "It makes perfect sense. Justice usually feels that way." I drove home through streets that looked the same but felt completely different. The house was quiet, peaceful for the first time in months. I poured myself a scotch, the last of the good bottle, and sat in my recliner. My phone buzzed with notifications as the recordings went live on social media, sent automatically by the program I'd set up. By morning, everyone in our professional and social circles would know the truth about Talia, Dana, Brad, and Nikki. They'd called me boring, predictable, vanilla, safe. They were wrong about everything except the last part. I wasn't safe, not to people who betrayed trust, who used others for their own gratification, who thought they could destroy someone's life without consequences. I was the hazard they never saw coming, the quiet storm that waited until the perfect moment to strike. They'd played their games, made their moves, celebrated their victories. But I'd won the war. Hazard pay, they called it in the warehouse. Extra compensation for dangerous work. I guess they never imagined I'd be the hazard.